Welcome to Rebecca's Renaissance, the podcast. I recently sat down with my friend Christy, who discovered she had some unexpected gifts and talked with me about how she developed those gifts. We discussed also stepping out of fear, growing rather than holding ourselves back, and then she also kind of touched on saying what you feel and think before it's too late. If you have listened to the previous episode, Stepping Out of Fear, you've heard the significantly edited version of that conversation. This is the extended version. While I did cut out some unnecessary content, I did leave in a lot more information about Christy's psychic medium development and some of her stories about readings and things. So hopefully some of you have been looking forward to this extended version of Stepping Out of Fear with Christy. Enjoy. So you and I had talked about, of course, we're going to touch on like psychic medium stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really interesting that it's been a few years since you really, I don't know, probably accepted that it was a thing.
Right.
And then what kind of journey you went on to explore it and develop it.
Mm-hmm.
Like even your class, that's so cool that there even is a class like that. That's
awesome.
Neat.
Mm-hmm.
And then, maybe like, what do you want to do with it and that sort of thing.
Well, I really like your questions because I didn't realize I had the gift. I just thought everybody was intuitive because I've always been a very intuitive person and could read people well.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it was a negative kind of reading. And I hated being right because it would always turn out like that. But I thought everybody was that way. And then I would just have like weird things that would happen to me. Like, I would play with my Smurfs when I was a kid and I'd have them all lined up.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't matter where I was at, whether it was in my home or somebody else's house. And I'd leave the room and come back and they were in a different direction. So as a child, I thought, wow, they're magic. These are magic Smurfs. How cool.
That's so Smurfy.
That's so Smurfy. And I couldn't believe it because I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't think anything about that. But looking back now, hindsight's 2020, I believe Spirit was trying to communicate with me as a child.
Wow.
I also could feel, like in a room, I could feel a heaviness in a room, or I could feel coolness in a room, or I could feel a presence. But again, I thought that was normal because I thought everybody could feel that way if they were open to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I believed in ghosts, okay, I'm going to feel this.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was totally normal. So the way it all actually started was I have a friend that has a friend that's a psychic medium. And she's like, you know what? I have this friend. She's a psychic medium. Would you like to talk to her? I'm like, you know what? I would love to. Because at the time I was a hospice nurse. Because I've always been drawn to help people who are dying because I took care of my mother when she was dying.
Yep.
So it was very comfortable for me. So I started that job. And when I was working as a nurse, I didn't know I had these abilities. So I would have weird things happen to me. Like I would see people out of my peripheral vision when I was at my house, like after I had been with a patient.
Whoa.
And I was like, is this just my imagination or is this something real?
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting a lot of emotions because I'm very empathic.
Mm-hmm.
So I experience others' emotions and I didn't realize it at the time. So I was getting all these negative feelings too. So I went to the psychic medium because I'm like, I always wanted to be a hospice nurse. What is wrong with me?
You're thinking were you thinking you were going crazy?
Yes.
Okay.
I was literally thinking that because I'm like, why am I having all these weird experiences? And then I saw somebody.
So you're like, okay, I've always wanted to be a hospice nurse. Now
Yep.
I'm a hospice nurse and I'm losing my freaking mind.
Yes.
So what's happening?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's why I went to a psychic medium because I had never had a reading before. And the first thing I said, I'm here because I think I'm an empath and I just need your help because I don't know why I don't like what I'm doing right now.
How can I turn this crap off?
Exactly. It was constantly happening. And she goes, well, you're not just an empath, you're a psychic medium. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm not. And it scared me. So I completely shut it down. So for 3 years, I ignored it. But I would have things that would happen. I would see things out of the corners of my eye and think it was just me. But fast forward, I ended up quitting my job at hospice and I went with a friend to a haunted house and I thought that I brought things back to my house because when I got back to my house, my cupboards were open in my kitchen. Like all of them were open. I came home from work one day.
Whoa.
My husband had gone up north to visit family, and my cupboards were open. So I was like, "What is going on? This is crazy." So I called this person, this psychic medium. I'm like, "Look, I need to talk to you. I think there's something going on. I think I brought something back with me from an actual ghost hunt."
Yeah.
So she agreed to sit with me, and we talked. And then,
So when you say haunted house, you don't mean haunted house. You mean a house that was haunted.
well, yeah, it was actually a ghost hunting adventure in
Okay.
Milton at the college.
Sure.
And I picked up on things when I was there, like I could feel heaviness, and I would get scared. And there's, they were doing EVPs, and you were hearing all these voices, and I was picking up on some negative things happening too. But I thought, oh my God, I brought something home. So she reassured me that I didn't. But what she said to me was, when you're a psychic medium, you have a light. People on the other side know they can communicate with you, so they will follow you. They'll try to communicate with you somehow. So
Wow.
it wasn't the people. I didn't bring anything home. It was already in my house.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Okay.
Yeah. So after that experience, she worked with me with energy, because I was picking up on lots of energy things, and then that kind of fell through, and I stopped it. And then I contacted another medium who was very popular in the area, and I did a reading with her because I'd never had a true reading, really. And she told me that, you could have some abilities, because I explained to her certain things that had happened to me, and I didn't understand them. And she said, you could very well have some abilities. I said, well, I'd like to pay for a mediumship course, because I want to know what this is.
Like, what do I do with this?
What do I do with this? Am I crazy? Do I need to see a psychiatrist? Because is somebody just feeding me some things that
Can I turn this
aren't
off?
Exactly. Is it possible? So she's like, you could have some abilities. I'm starting this mediumship group, and I'd like you to be a part of this. You don't owe me anything. All you owe me is readings. I just want you to do some readings for me at my shop.
Which is way cool, because then you're getting like practice. I mean, really, that would probably be part of the mentorship anyway.
Yes,
But that was how you paid for it.
that's how I paid
Was
for it
readings.
through readings. But it was COVID, so we weren't able to like go to the downtown. I was doing readings like on Facebook.
Yeah. How does that? Okay. Okay. Anyway, I have lots of questions. All right. That's cool. All right. I want to put a pin in that for 1 second. Can you tell me overall, just what does wellness mean to you?
Wellness
Yeah.
is mind, body, and spirit. I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's you're healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. Because if you're missing one of them, you're going to have problems with the other two.
Mm-hmm. How do you think, like, has your definition or perception of wellness changed as, I mean, you don't have to say how old you are, but we don't all want to
Okay.
say how old we are. But how have you, how has your perception of wellness changed as you've gotten older and gone through different phases of life? Like now your kids are out of the house, and is it different now because of some of those big life changes, or what's the evolution of wellness for you?
Well, I think, no pun intended.
Well, oh, well.
I think it's just because, as you get older, and I am middle age, you cannot lose weight like you did when you were 18.
Mhm.
So it really was about diet. What am I putting in my mouth?
Yes.
That's the problem.
That is a problem.
And then I would exercise. Okay, exercise was great. I would get in good physical shape, and I would be firm, but I wasn't losing weight. So because I wasn't changing my eating.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about that. It's like, 80% of what you eat, and it's 10% exercise. Or
Wait.
20%, sorry.
Are you looking at my matcha latte on purpose as you say that?
It is true. It's what you put in your mouth. You are what you eat kind of thing. That is actually true.
Well, that's why. Okay, so I have my own. This is Starbucks, I admit, and apparently they have sugar in their mix.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I have my own matcha coming, so I can do it sugar free, because that's going to make a big difference. But
Oh, huge.
I just want everyone to know that you were eyeing up my matcha as you were talking smack about what people put in their mouths. Not fair. Okay, anyway.
So, yeah, I mean, and I think it's just like I said, and once you start feeling better physically, you start feeling better mentally.
You do.
And then spiritually, however,
Mhm.
whatever your belief systems are. But I really do believe you have to have all three.
Yeah, it's funny because I think physical wellness is a huge barrier to really like actualizing wellness in other areas of your life. Not that you can't improve them, because I know I've always been mindful, spiritual, but don't look at me in a picture. But like when I lost all that weight and I was feeling really good physically, I was able to kind of start looking at other things in my life and focusing on developing other things. So I think that's an important thing and a barrier that a lot of people have.
I don't know how I'm coming across.
How do you think how do you feel about it?
I mean,
do
I think
the
it's just
spirits tell
spirits
you?
are actually just throwing it out of my mouth, okay?
Well, then there you go. Not even you. Who cares what
Not
you have
me.
to say as long as we hear what they have to say.
Exactly.
Scrolling up. Okay. Well, since we kind of just dove in, can we do a little intro like, hi, my friend Christy is here. Okay, no. I'm just looking at my notes. This all gets cut out, you know.
Oh, it does.
Anything I don't like me thinking,
Oh, okay.
gets cut out.
Hey, that takes the pressure off. It really does. Oh my
Totally.
gosh,
Which is
love it.
why I didn't stop that, because we started talking about what we were going to talk about, and then we just sort of started talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay,
Just roll with it.
let's go with it.
Mhm.
It was, the spirits were putting it
Yeah.
out.
That happens.
Okay, so I'm going to do a little intro. Bear with me. Can't see it over there.
But
I have to point my nose where I'm looking. This is not what I'm used to with
Mhm.
the bifocals. I'm very like, I'll just glance over here, glance
Oh.
over there.
Yep.
And now I can't.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel disabled because I have to actually turn my head. Now everyone knows what I'm looking at.
Oh my God. So you know what I forgot to say, and I'm like mad
Oh,
because I wasn't like organized in my brain. That
we can start over.
the gift started because of I realized something happened, and it was a spiritual awakening when I took care of my mother when she was dying of cancer. That's what propelled everything.
Oh,
I left that out.
okay.
That's like the catalyst, actually.
Did someone visit? I guess you don't have to tell
Oh,
me
yeah.
anything. So
She
you had a
visitor. She had visitors.
She had visitors.
Yes, because her brother and her sister died within the time my mother. So my mom and her brother and sister died within 6 weeks of each other. My mother was expected, and both of them had brain aneurysms.
Whoa.
And I was talking about going to her uncle, because my mom was dying. She was probably a week away from actually physical death. Her brother had died.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I'm like, Mom, just so you know, Uncle Bill died. And she goes, I know. I was just talking to him. And she literally was sitting on the couch and she was like talking to people. And I was reading this book called Final Gifts, and it talks about how when people are going through the dying phase, that they will start communicating with people that we can't see, that are in the spiritual world, that will help her.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Wow. I don't even know what to say to follow that up. I'm just like,
But I saw her and I got
Wow.
the chills. Like I knew something was happening to her. Like she was transitioning in a spiritual way. She was no longer the body. She was like in between type.
so while you were working for hospice, did you have that same kind of experience with your patients, or is it different because it was your mother?
I think the comfort level was there because I had been through it and I had seen it, and I could be a comfort to the family members. The dying, I had no problem telling them, go towards the light, or knowing this one's going to die. And I would be at the nursing home and I would wait for my patient, and I knew they were going to die, and I would wait. And every time that happened, they died
Wow.
because they were transitioning.
So me, I'm like, it's the end of my shift. See you later, homie. But you were like, oh, I'm staying late tonight.
No, it was still within my 8 hours. It was just that I felt that I needed to stay. Like my intuition said, stay here. It's
Wow.
going to happen. And it did.
That's amazing. Okay. So today we're going to talk to my friend Christy. We've already been talking, but no one else will know that at this point. My friend Christy, who discovered, I don't know, how old were you when your mother passed away?
28.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
Okay, so
was young.
discovered a few years ago
Mhm.
that she had some psychic gifts and kind of pushed that away for a while. And the reason that I brought Christy here was because I think it's really interesting to learn about a gift when you're a little bit older. I don't know. I don't want to say like you're old, because that's not what I mean at all. But, you know, you're well into adulthood and you're like, oh, hey, I didn't even know I could do this.
Mhm.
And then to make something of it.
Right.
and just how you go about it. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we already talked about how you got into this, so I can so that they know who you are.
Yeah. So my name is Christy. I'm a psychic medium. I'm in my mid ages. I'm 51 years old. I'm just going to put it out there.
You're
just
young.
putting it out there. And I have psychic abilities. I can talk to the people who are on the other side. I know what they look like. I can communicate with them. And when it first started happening, I thought I was crazy. And I thought I needed to see a psychiatrist.
Which you probably did, but that was something different.
Right. But this brought me over to the other side, and it was a great experience. And then I realized I didn't need one. But I finally started sharing information I was getting on people. And the first time I shared it, a friend of mine that I worked with, I didn't know her family well, but I knew who they were. She posted on Facebook that it was her dad's passing that day. And in my head, I hear, it's not out like we're talking, but in my head, I hear, tell my daughter I know that her locket's in her jewelry box. I heard it once and I'm like, okay, is that my own thoughts? Am I just wanting to tell her this?
Yeah.
But it came very quickly and suddenly, and I had the chills from head to toe. That's usually my validation for things.
How did you know who it was for?
Because it was connected.
Okay, so you just know.
I just knew.
Okay.
And then it happened again and again. It wouldn't go away. And he just was in my head saying this to me, you got to tell my daughter. And it was almost like that itch you can't scratch.
Yeah.
But once I delivered that, and I was scared to death to deliver the message, I sent her a message on Facebook and I'm like, look, if you were given a locket as a child, your dad is saying he knows it's in your jewelry box. And I saw a golden locket. I saw her dad and I saw a jewelry box.
What did she say to you?
She sent back to me, and it took her a little while to respond. And I'm like, oh my God, she's going to think I'm crazy. I'm going to have this horrible reputation. Oh my God. But it was like chill bumps head to toe. I knew it was something big because that is usually what happens when spirit communicates, is I get that kind of feeling. And she sent me back a message, and she showed me the golden locket. And she said this is what she was given as a child, and it was in her jewelry box.
Wow.
And I knew at that point, this was something real. And I wasn't doing anything. I was just looking at her Facebook, and all of a sudden I get this information, and that's how spirit communicates.
Okay, I have a couple questions. When you say spirit communicates, is it a spirit, any spirit, multiple spirits?
Depends on the situation. Like in this case, it was one, her dad.
Okay.
He was giving me a message for her, and she was so grateful and so happy that her dad actually made contact with her, because she'd never had a communication, never saw a psychic. I mean, none of those things. She believes in it, but she never had the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So at that moment, I knew this is what I want to do. Because it just brought me to the point of, this is amazing to touch somebody's life like that. And I've never looked back.
So for you then, it's very satisfying to be able to give that connection, really,
Yes.
to someone.
It changes their life. It really does. And it's not like, oh, he loved you or he's so proud of you. It was a validation of what he wanted her to know that I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Do you ever get multiple spirits telling you multiple things for multiple people at a time? And then how the hell do you know which message is for who, or what in the heck?
I've had that happen where that's interesting you said that. I've had it happen where I've had two aunts come through, but they were different personalities. So I was able to separate who they were. But what I've been taught to do is to tell them, wait your turn. We're talking to this one. You have to take control. It sounds crazy, but you literally have to tell them, set boundaries with your spirits, okay? So if anybody's doing this and they're getting overwhelmed, set boundaries with them, because they need to know they need to wait a turn. Because there are some very strong personalities.
No way.
The way people are in life
is
how they are in death.
Wow.
That's how it comes across to me. That's been my experience.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of cool validation that this is a spirit within my body and it transcends this body, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
We go down a deep hole with that one.
Yes. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Do you want to tell us about your family or your career or anything like that?
Oh, I can, sure.
No,
So,
it's up to you.
I'm the youngest of 3. I have 2 brothers, and my dad lives in Illinois. He's retired, great man. I've told him about my experiences, and he's one of those skeptical people, but yet he believes me because he knows I'm not a pathological liar and I'm not going to make this up. I'm just not that way. That's not in my DNA. And I'm a nurse, and that's I'm also an empath, and I probably chose nursing because I'm an empath and I care
So
and I feel things.
what's funny too is so we worked together at the health center.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of med seekers.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you being like, yeah, don't worry about that guy. He's a piece of shit. Or,
Oh my God.
or, you know, or not.
Yeah.
I mean, but that really stands out in my head because
Nice.
not in a bad way, in a very like, you knew what you were dealing with
Mm-hmm.
and who to not take any garbage from, which was super helpful for me walking into a situation where I'm like, this is a different world up in here. Like, I don't know what I have done, but I'm going to learn some Spanish and some other languages, and it's going to be a thing. So,
So it's basically reading people. Like I can tell you, I know who's lying.
yeah.
And I know who's giving me a bunch of BS. I've always been able to do that. I just thought it was normal, but I didn't know that was your first impression.
No,
That's really funny.
That is not my first impression.
Okay.
That is one of my lasting impressions, however.
I love it.
But yeah, I love it in a way that I totally love it.
With respect. Like I would never demean anybody, but you have to have boundaries, and you have, like with the spirits, you have to have them with the people too.
Yeah, I probably have to cut all that out. That's fine.
Oh,
I probably should.
because I went.
No, my fault.
Oh. I was like, did I say
I just was going to tell you, but
drink?
if it's good enough, oh, yeah, that's good.
It's drink time. This is fun.
Where's the vodka?
This is fun.
Who brought the vodka?
Charlie, just go sit in your chair. You cannot come in here.
Who is Charlie?
I don't know. I'm just making up somebody. Charlie just came in.
Unless you have vodka.
This is fun.
Right? Okay. Serious questions now.
Okay.
Serious questions.
All right.
What does it mean to be psychic?
Means that you have a knowing about things, and you have no way of knowing how you know. There's something called claircognizance, and that's what I have too. People that are psychic aren't always mediums, but all mediums are psychics.
Okay.
That's kind of how it works. But as a psychic, you're able to read energy. You're able to tell somebody what their future is, what their present is, what their energy's like, what their boyfriend's energy is like. You can do that as a psychic, but you can also do that as a medium.
So what is a medium?
So a medium is truly the person that receives messages from those people that are dead. I mean, the deceased.
Mm-hmm.
And they relay those messages to the sitter, which if I was doing a reading for you, you would be my sitter, and I would give you information. Whatever it is that's coming through for you, there's a reason. Like spirit will just come through when they know you need to hear something. It's not always who you want it to be, because I have no control of who comes through, as you know. Because I have no control of who comes through. Spirits who are supposed to come through. And it's usually a very good reason, as you know.
Cool.
Yeah. But they give that, but I'm like, I want to say almost like a secretary to heaven. That's what other mediums have said. It's like I get information, I hear it, I feel it, I see it, and I just know. And I start to tell you that information.
Are some psychics or some mediums better than others?
Oh, of course. So they talk about, everybody has a capability of communicating with the other side. Everybody can do that. But there's different levels of it. I've been told, because I've asked that question, because I'm like, this is just kind of weird. Like, how do some people get this information and some people don't really get it at a certain level? They kind of have a superficial understanding. And I was told everybody can sing, but not everybody's a Grammy winner.
Okay.
So that's like a really good comparison, and that's kind of how it works. And some people are gifted, and there are many people that are gifted that aren't on television that are doing this out of their homes. Some people may be just doing it for free.
Yeah.
Other people start charging.
Mm-hmm.
But there are many talented, gifted people out there.
Okay. Now, one of the interesting things that when I was hearing your story recently, I just thought it was really cool that like you discovered this gift. How long did it take you to admit it to yourself?
Well,
or recognize it maybe even fully?
Well, when I first got the reading for my friend whose dad had passed and that was a validation, I knew it was something real. I couldn't deny that it was something real. Because shortly after that, I'd gotten another message for her. And then my messages, I called them accidental readings because I didn't know what they were. I had no idea what was happening. All I knew is I was open to the spirit, and they wanted to deliver messages, and they were showing me ways that I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like the beginning stages of what would happen. And then it's accelerated since.
Mm-hmm. So you've developed it. Tell me, like, how do you develop? I mean, maybe not even this specific thing, but well, for you it would be.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find a class? How do you develop this skill?
Well, what I did was I looked up like James Van Praagh because he would have classes online. Like during COVID, a lot of mediums started doing everything on Facebook because obviously they couldn't do it in a large group of people. So I would start following like Thomas John and then James Van Praagh, and just kind of like listen to they would do like a FaceTime, and they would talk about having classes. And I was looking at the prices, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of money. I can't afford that. But I would also buy books, and I would start reading about different mediums. There's Monica the Medium, Matt Fraser. I read his. James Van Praagh's book I read over 20 years ago. Whoa. When I couldn't figure out what spiritual awakening, what it was that happened to me. I knew it was something significant, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was actually over 20 years ago. I was 23 years ago, actually, to be exact. That's when I was watching, like, John Edwards had a show.
Yep.
Yes.
I remember that.
Yes. And I remember watching it and going, oh my God, this is so incredible, because I felt like I had a similar experience with my mother when she was dying.
Yeah.
And all the things I experienced. And I couldn't put a name on it. I didn't know. So long story short, I started reading books about mediums, and Monica the Medium, in her book, she started taking classes. She knew she had something. She knew something was going on with her because she was having the same experiences I had. Like, it was very similar. Mm-hmm. And she thought she needed to see a psychiatrist too, because she's like, why am I getting messages from people? Like, this is crazy.
Like, this is weird.
Because it's not like you're going out to make yourself be this. I believe it's a calling. Certain things in life are a calling.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a calling. And so I read her book, and she's talked about getting involved in mediumship courses, because that will kind of help you organize what's going on with you, figure it out, and kind of be able to relay those messages. And so I started looking around for mediumship classes, and I called a psychic medium in the area, and she actually put me in her scholarship class for mediums. I mean, I was really special.
If you didn't know there's scholarship, there are.
And she taught us how to read energy. Like, she was very, very good.
Wow.
And that's how I learned, and all the other things that she taught, that's how I learned how to figure out, like with symbols. Like, when you are communicating with the dead, it's basically like charades. They're showing you symbols.
Frustrated.
Right?
I would be so frustrated by that. Okay, sorry.
But
go
you
ahead.
can kind of intuitively figure out what it means.
No, you can kind of intuitively figure out what it means.
But it takes a while, and some things don't make sense right away, but they will later. Mm-hmm. Like, I was doing a reading for a friend, and her grandfather was very strong personality, but I was bringing through other family members, and I knew she wanted to talk to her grandfather, and I knew he was there, but I'm like, give me your name. Like, in my head, I'm asking him, just tell me what your name is. Just tell me. He's like, well, I've been here the whole time, and I don't need to tell you my name. So
that sounds like grandpa for real.
Yes. And I was telling this, I'm like, this is what he's saying, and I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, so I asked him again in my head, tell me your name. And then when I said that, I heard the word Donald, and I saw Donald Duck. And I said, okay, Donald. And she goes, oh my God, that is my grandfather's name.
Neat.
So they do give you symbols like that. And they're usually things that you're very familiar with, like the Brady Bunch, or like I get a lot of Charlie Brown.
You know, the Charlie Brown symbolism.
Because they know that you can that you remember that that's something you could relate to, because they don't talk like we do. Like, I mean, you can get their thoughts, but you don't, like, everything's kind of.
So when they're showing you Charlie Brown,
Yeah.
is it making sense to you, or is the point because it makes sense to me as the sitter? Like, who's it making sense for, or does it vary?
It's kind of both, but it's more so for the sitter. Like, I was doing another reading last summer, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm getting this, but I keep hearing Charlie Brown. Like, I see Charlie Brown, I see like the whole thing, I hear the music. I'm like, what is this? So the very next, and she didn't understand what was going on, but the very next day, she texted me and she said, by the way, my ringtone is Charlie Brown. So Spirit was trying to communicate that, because Spirit will let the sitter know what's going on in their life right now.
Give me the willy.
Yes. Yes. And that's how it works. They will
Wow.
use symbolism.
So it's like, hey, I'm trying to call you. Answer the dang phone. I'm trying to call you.
It's true. That's kind of how it works.
Okay, so I looked up some quick stats because
Yeah.
I wanna always have stats for people.
Okay.
So this is a 2017 statistic. 1 in 5 American adults has consulted a psychic or medium. 1 in 5.
Wow.
Is that a lot or a little?
That's a lot.
You think that surprises you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Half of American women say they have felt a spirit at one point or another.
I can believe that.
Okay. So why do we ignore it? Okay. Let's see. Psychic occurrences such as correctly predicting the future, things like that, are more common with women. Roughly 40% of women have correctly predicted something, as opposed to men, who only like 25% of them have correctly predicted something or thought they had a psychic occurrence.
You know, I wonder about that, because in the psychic circles that I belong to, that I practice with, you know, people from all over the world, actually, very few men do this. But the ones that do are very, very good. The ones that I've met are very good. I think men have a harder time embracing it than women do. And I think that's probably why the statistics are, I'm just guessing. I don't know. But from my experience and the people I've met, you don't see a lot of men. I mean, like on television, there's tons of men right now that have shows like Thomas John and Matt Fraser and John Edwards. And
does John Edwards still have a show?
I think he has one. He did have one. I can't remember the name of it.
24% of Americans believe there are actually individuals who possess the ability to see the future. 28% of women and 19% of men. So men are just more skeptical.
It seems like that.
Which is maybe, do we think, here's my unofficial poll for Christy. Do you think men are more skeptical, so therefore they aren't embracing maybe some signs that they have some gifts? Or are they just less gifted? Which isn't how I mean it, but maybe do fewer men have this particular gift and therefore are more skeptical because they just don't know other dudes who can do that?
I don't think so, because I actually was someplace yesterday. There were 2 men I talked to. One of them had heard what I did, that I was a psychic medium, asked me a question about it. Guess what came out?
What?
Their own experiences that they've never talked about, because it's a taboo thing. People think you're crazy. I mean, people are afraid of what people think. I mean, that's just human nature. But I had 2 men, 2, have experiences, have psychic experiences that they talked about. So I really believe they don't talk about it.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I thought when I read this statistic. I think women are just fessing up to it. And men are like, or, well, I don't have proof that that's what that was. So,
Right.
No. Okay. More than a quarter, this is not completely related, but it kind of is, because I think spirituality is an important element of wellness. More than a quarter of U.S. adults consider themselves spiritual, not religious.
I believe that. And the reason I say that is because I really felt like during COVID, people were either they couldn't go to church, but either go that direction or spiritual. I really feel like the media has done a great job of introducing psychics and mediums. It's on television. You can watch it on YouTube. So I feel that people don't like and I'm not saying anything bad about the Bible, but I feel like people have like their own higher power. Like they believe in God, but they have their own understanding of who that is.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the older churches are boring, and I don't go to church. I believe in God 100%, but I really feel like people, and I've said this because I've told this to my husband, I'm like, I really feel like people are really going the spirituality route because this is how it was defined to me years ago. Religion is what you do for God. Spirituality is what you allow God to do for you.
That's an interesting definition. I like it. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have nothing to back this up. I'm just saying I really feel like people during COVID were so afraid and they had to believe in something.
Yeah. I also think as long as you kind of introduce that, what I've been thinking about, because I think about this kind of stuff all the time, I think religion is action. Like these are the things I do because I am a Christian or whatever you are. Go to church, go do these are our practices.
Mm-hmm.
I think of spirituality as my belief more than my action.
Yes.
And so my spirituality is always with me, but religion isn't such a big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also more people are going that route. What I think is interesting is then your spirituality, like I said, it's always with you. So COVID, you can't go to church. You can't practice your religion in the way that you have.
Right.
You can't be at that place with those people, following that kind of step-by-step thing that you do. So I think people had to find a different way to connect with it because I do think spirituality is essential to every single one of us. And you have to find the thing for you.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. It's probably not what your parents taught you.
Right.
It's probably not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not because they're wrong, but they were either teaching you what they were taught or they were teaching you what was right for them.
Yes.
And I think what's right for each of us is probably very different. So I think it's a really cool topic. It is related to this. It is different also. But there's so many, I don't know, like I picture it like a river with a bunch of little tributaries. Like spirituality is, I think, the river, and all of these other things are the tributaries off of that river,
It starts somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Since you started like saying, hey, I'm a psychic medium, what kind of response do you get?
Well, first, I have to say I was in the closet for a very long time. Only a few
You were in the psychic medium closet
for a very long time because I was afraid of what people would think.
Yeah.
Even though I knew I had the ability, I just didn't want to put it out there because I was scared of my reputation. Being a nurse, I was a professional.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to taint that reputation because I thought it would do that. But I met some great women that are professional psychic mediums that have businesses, and they're like, you know what? It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to just get it out there. And then one morning at 4 a.m, I got this feeling, because that happens to me. You need to get on Facebook.
Some of us have alarms.
I have people
Other
that talk in
people,
my ear.
different things.
And it's get out your Facebook and introduce yourself. So that is what I did at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a day I had to work, but I got out and I started talking about it. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I am about. This is kind of my backstory, basically. And I was really shocked with the positive responses I got. I was also pleasantly surprised with people that would message me secretly and say, hey, I think I've had this too, and I've seen ghosts as a child, and I just wanted to let you know. I'm like, yeah, I know that because I can feel it when you're talking to me.
You're like, I knew that before you did.
Yeah,
though.
right. Kind of like, yeah, it was great. And that's another reason why I did it. I think everything's about intention. And when you have good intentions, it goes a long way and it can really help people. I mean, that's kind of how I think.
Yeah.
And by getting out there, coming out of the psychic closet, helped people like become comfortable with spirituality.
How you say that?
I know. Well, that's how it kind of felt. Like,
Well,
I don't know what it's like to be homosexual because I'm not. but I know what it's like to hold a secret because you're ashamed. Not really ashamed, but kind of like, I don't know if I want people to know this because they're going to think I'm crazy. It was all about what they thought. And I was to the point where I don't really care about that. I don't care what anybody thinks now. I'm out to help other people, and it's about my intention, and that's what it is. So be it.
Have you received any negativity, or does your light block them?
No.
My light is so bright.
Well, at least not to my face. I've not had any people that were, I did have a family member that was concerned and talked about, if you have spirits in your house, they're really not of God. These are demonic spirits, and they're telling you what you want to hear, and they're doing that on purpose. Well, no, that's not it. Because I always,
well, how did she know that? I mean, like, where?
It was a he, but anyway.
Where did that come from, sir?
The Bible, I guess.
If you want to squeeze
know.
that up.
Oh, okay. What happened?
I don't know, but it's just.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Better?
Yes. Oh my God, that fits so much better. Yeah. So this person left a message and said, oh, you got to be careful and we can have this conversation. Well, no, we're not going to have this conversation. I'm going to totally ignore your message. I know what I believe in and my experiences are, and I know what my intentions are. This is of God, first of all. I believe God gifted.
How do you know? How do you know?
Because it's a good thing. It's a good thing that God, it's a good reason. My intentions are to be helpful to people.
Okay.
Because I want to help you.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this to make money. I'm really not, and that was never my intention. I never, ever wanted to do a business. It was encouraged that I do it. Because
it's not like there's benefits with this gig. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, there's no 401k.
Right. And the other thing is, it's hard to prove that you're a psychic medium because you don't take a board test and pass it. I mean, you just experience stuff.
And like earlier when I asked you, are some better than others? I was going to ask you too, like, how do I know? Let's say I'm like, okay, I want to have a reading. Who should I have read me? I mean, how do you know you're picking a good one? I think the answer is you don't know.
Right.
Unless, like, reputation.
Yes.
I mean,
I think word of mouth is the best way to get that information because you're going to have people that have had that experience. There are people out there that are scammers. They call themselves psychic mediums, and they do what are called cold readings, where they kind of lead the person on. Instead of so if you go to a psychic medium, you want somebody that's going to start giving you information, not the other way around. They have to start giving you information. And then, like things, not like, oh, your mother loved you. No, you had a conversation with your mom one time. You threw your Barbie against the wall. Like, I mean, valid things that only you would know, that spirit would communicate. That is a real psychic medium. It's not the fluffy stuff.
Yeah. And I'm assuming like overly general. Like, I've always wondered because I've had multiple readings in my life for fun. And sometimes I think there's legitimacy to it. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know if that's really accurate.
Right.
But one thing I can tell you is I'm always kind of aloof about it because I don't want to give away too much information.
Good.
I don't want to respond to something that the reader is telling me like, oh yeah, that's true because when I was 12, blah 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 blah.
Right.
And then like give this person a bunch of more information to kind of build a story off of or whatever. So to me, I've thought it's been mostly legitimate because I'm holding back. Like I'll say, okay, yeah, that sounds like a thing.
Right.
Yeah, keep going with that. But pick someone who you have heard from other people is good. And then don't give away too much information.
Yes.
You need some validation, though, as you're reading, right? Like,
well, yeah, you want to say, does this make sense to you? That's what you say is, does this make sense? So the reader to the sitter says, does this make sense? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. And then they build upon more information that they're getting, not that you're not what you're telling them.
So how long's it been since you went to college? You have a nursing degree, right?
3 years.
Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah.
I'm still not clear on your timeline. So when
I probably didn't give you a clear answer.
I tried so hard with this one. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, I'm all disorganized.
You're like,
in my
before
head.
that, after that.
I got some ADD, okay, which is very common among psychic mediums because we pick up on things like 100 things at once.
That was happening to me. I can't blame it. I must have gifts because I am ADD.
Me too, but I medicate myself with caffeine. don't take anything.
Which helps out, you know.
It really does.
I do too, except now this matcha, it's not as caffeinated as coffee. However, it's got sugar in it. So
There you go.
different vibration.
You're bringing up my vibe, though.
Bringing up my vibe.
Oh, yeah.
I guess what I was curious about was,
There's a man named Charlie that hangs out here.
Is there really?
Yeah, I feel it. No, I'm serious. Like,
I
I'm
thought,
getting it.
like earlier when you said Charlie, I said, who's Charlie? Because I'm like, are you telling me someone's here named Charlie?
Yeah.
Is this Charlie's room?
I don't know if it's his room, but he's roaming around. And the reason I say that is because when I said that and I felt it, I got the chills from head to toe, and that's my validation every single time. That does not lead me wrong.
Does he like being called Chuck?
I don't know, Charlie. You want me to call you? It's somebody that has been here for years, though. I feel like.
That's interesting.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
That's how it happens, though, with me.
Yeah.
Very quickly. And
Clearly, because when you got out of your car at my house, you were like,
I had
whoa.
the chills right away.
Native American vibes up in this joint.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. Did they camp there? I don't know. I've got lots of questions that, whatever.
We got to look that up.
We should. I mean, it makes sense, right? On the creek.
I
in
never
this
thought of that.
area.
I didn't know anything about that, really. I did not.
Yeah.
I'm not good with geography. I'm not good with histories. I'm admitting that out loud.
That's perfect. That makes you a better psychic medium.
Right.
Like, a psychic medium with a strong background in history is shady AF.
I love that.
Hey, I did some research on your property before I got here. You cheating bastard. No. Get off my property.
I
right
could
now.
feel them. I could feel it when I got there, though.
Well, that's cool. Now I'm curious about Charlie. It's just so interesting to me because does everybody go back to school? Are there just a select few of us? I mean, what is happening in the world? Because I think it's so cool that like you're taking classes for your psychic mediumship, that you had like a mentor or sounded like a couple different mentors. And when you started talking to me about that, I'm like, wait, this sounds like me with instructional design. Like how, what?
I don't feel like it's school, though, because it's something I want to do, and I'm just trying to learn to hone my skills.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at is I believe in continual improvement. I believe in continually searching. Here's what I think is interesting. We've been talking about this here at work because a couple of people have had kids graduate from high school this week. One of them was like my youngest daughter, my oldest daughter, whatever, graduating from high school. And in talking to these parents, and it's happened to me a lot because of career coaching and all of the things in my background, everybody thinks that when you graduate from high school and you go to college, you're supposed to know what you want to do. How in the hell is that reality?
Right.
You don't know jack
Right.
at that age. I think even those kids who have a trajectory and think they know where they're headed or what they want to do still may not end up doing that thing.
Right.
And so like when my daughter went to college, she was like, but I don't know what I want to study. And I told her not to worry about it. Go to the school you want to go to, learn about stuff you find interesting. You'll find your direction.
Right.
Because what I have found in my life is I keep coming back to, as a middle-aged adult, coming back to things that were true about me as a kid.
Okay.
I keep coming back to things that, like hobbies that I liked when I was a kid, things that interested me when I was a kid, skills that I was drawn to as a kid. And then you kind of set all that stuff aside in your pursuit of what everyone tells you should be pursuing. You're supposed to, and not directly, sometimes it's indirectly. Like I think for me, I got a very strong message in high school in that period of time. Like you're supposed to be pretty and wear makeup and go on dates and have a boyfriend and then get married and have a kid and do all these things. So when I went to college and I didn't like it, which was surprising to me, I quit and I did the next thing that you do, which is I got married and had a kid.
Right.
And that's fine. But I ended up coming back to writing, recording, teaching anyway. So I think I always ask people like, well, what were the games you played when you were a kid? Because what I played was school. Or I was like in a business.
Interesting.
And that's what I do.
interesting.
What did you play when you were a kid?
Nurse.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
My dolls had IVs. I made homemade IVs for my dolls. I would use pens and I would stick them in their arms because I had a brother that was very, very sick when he was younger.
Oh.
Like he almost died. He
Yeah.
had asthma so severely that his lungs were so damaged and he'd have to be intubated when he'd have an asthma attack.
Oh, wow.
And so I would go to UW Hospital and visit my brother, and I met all these young, sick kids, like cystic fibrosis at that time when they didn't live long,
Yeah.
and kids with cancer, and kids who were having, kidney transplants. And I don't know what it was, but I just was drawn to it, and I would just. My dolls would have casts with toilet paper on them. I would use toilet paper for their casts on their legs.
It looked right.
And I wanted to be a nurse. Like that was what I really wanted to do. And you're right. Because later on in life, that's when I decided I want to be a nurse. And I was an LPN for 15 years and then went on to become an RN. And part of the reason I didn't do that right away is because fear. Fear prevents that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that story is fear prevented me. Once I stepped out of that fear and just did it
Yeah.
and just kind of knew that was my calling. I need to do this and I want to do it. And there were a few roadblocks, along the way, but I did it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't give up.
Yeah. What was the distinction between an RN versus an LPN? Why did you want to take that step?
Well, first of all, I wanted to learn more because as an LPN, you get to a certain point and you don't learn as much as you would as an RN. I mean, there's a lot more. It's more in depth. It's more, physiological things that you didn't realize as an LPN. It's like you still learn how to be a nurse, but it's very much more intense, and you have to have more classes.
Depth of knowledge.
Depth of knowledge is much different. Yes, and it's very tough. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. That's why I'm like, well, if I can do that, I can be a medium, okay? And I will step out of that fear.
What you say? You got a class for medium? I'm all in. Is there a clinical on that thing? That's all. I'm not doing another clinical.
Oh, no more clinicals. Oh my God, that was a nightmare. No way. No, I've actually thought of that. I'm like, when I'm doing a reading, like when I was in nursing school and you had your instructor, depending on who it was, because you had some instructors that were, power trips. And it was very intimidating.
I don't know anyone in medicine that has power trips.
Right. Not at all.
Okay.
But they were so intimidating, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I can overcome that, I can do a reading for somebody I've never met in my life. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't feel that fear like I did as going to nursing school. It's not the same. Isn't that crazy?
So what have you learned about fear then? I love that you're talking about fear.
To embrace it.
Yeah.
To step out of that comfort zone. I've been told that in the last year. Step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Do what you want. Don't miss an opportunity. Don't let an opportunity go by. Don't do that. Step into it and do it. You live once.
So I think something that I recognize in my history, and I've heard other people say, especially women maybe, is, yeah, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. And I think the thing is, of course we don't. But you don't have to know how to do it yet, right? And that was with my master's. Like, there was just a push. I didn't know why I was getting pushed to start it sooner than I had planned. That was not the plan.
Right.
But there was something saying, doesn't really matter. Just take the next step. You don't have to know the end thing. You don't have to know even fully the direction that this is going in. Just have to know the next step and do the thing. Trust and take the next step is really so much simpler than how we build it up in our heads and we're like, but I don't know and I can't see it and I didn't plan this and whatever. There is a lot of fear.
It's following your intuition. You followed your intuition. You were supposed to start it later and you didn't. You went for it. Something said, and you said that.
Yeah,
something told me to go for it.
But what was it, Chrissy?
Your intuition. You have guides on the other side that are guiding you in life. That's why I've always been impressed with you, because you are that person. You are that person that steps out of your fear and you just do it. You say you're going to do something, you follow through. And knowing you from working with you,
oh my God,
I've always respected that, because not a lot of people are that way. The people in life that do things that others don't want to do or you don't want to do are the most successful, because you have to do it. You have to pay your dues to get where you need to go.
So much. One of my biggest not the part. Okay, so there was a lot right there. Listen, my brain's gone in 1,500 directions in that bit of time. But you say you're that person, and I think I'm shaking my head. No one can see that, but I was shaking my head at you because I don't feel like that person. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It's not my self-identity or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't.
Proof's in the pudding. Okay. You went on to get your master's degree. You have educated, you've gone to education. Nobody handed this to you. You worked for it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
that's fair. There were a lot of tears in that master's degree.
I believe you. That's hard to do. See what I'm saying? You had a goal. You had a goal time. I believe you told me that before. Like, you wanted to get it finished within a certain amount of time. You did that.
Yeah.
You did what you said you were going to do. Not everybody does that.
Oh, so that was a huge lesson, though. And that's, I think, why I'm kind of on this, because I didn't know what in the hell I was doing. And I didn't know how to run this equipment. And I didn't know how, I had never done every single class. I had to learn a different software. And it was scary and daunting and frustrating, and I did cry a lot. And there were some late nights, cramming to get like the production done for class, and just things not working right.
Wow.
It wasn't technology. People are like, "Oh, I'm not as good with you as you are with technology." Please, people, I am not. But I have to figure it out for what I'm doing.
See,
you
do what you need to do.
You just do it. You mentioned you had an intuition, you were an empath, etc. And you didn't know it was a gift because you just thought everybody was that thing. Well, that's how I have felt with like writing and talking, like speaking. I just thought everybody could do it.
Right.
So, hey everyone, you know that thing you do that like your friends compliment you on, and you don't get it because you're like, but everybody could talk. Everybody can feel. No, they can't.
No,
they can't.
No, they can't.
No, we all have unique skills. I can pack a trunk like nobody's business. I have really good spatial recognition. I thought everybody could do that until I went on a trip with Rick, and I'm like, what are you doing with the suitcases? And I don't understand. What are you doing? So it's little silly stuff sometimes. What else should we talk about? Anything else?
I don't know. What else should we talk about?
Is there anything you want to tell people about self-discovery, about
embrace your fear? And it doesn't matter if you're a psychic medium, if you're going to school for nursing, if you're going to school for engineering. Doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah.
If you really want to do that, do it.
Do the thing.
Because what I know and what we all know, life is short.
Yeah.
Life truly is short. And the one take home I have from the other side and the experiences I've had, many people die young. I mean, and if you have an opportunity and you're a healthy person, go for it. Just do it.
With you having been in hospice situations, what have you heard from these patients? Did they tell you things?
Yes.
What did you learn from them?
Well, the ones that wanted to die were like in their hundreds, right?
They
outlive their friends and their family.
Yeah, they're like, I got you, babe.
I just want to die. I'm like, but you know what? You're not ready to go yet. You're just,
we still need you.
For whatever reason, you're still here. I'll never forget in nursing school, I was doing a preceptorship with hospice because that's what I obviously wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I was at a nursing home, and there was a man that was dying. And I'd met him, and he wasn't physically dying at the time, but he was going to die. We didn't know when. I saw him the next week. I met his family. We talked about some things, and they had some really interesting dynamics. They didn't get along with their dad. They hated their dad.
This was him?
This was them, the family, telling me this stuff, right? So they're just saying that we can't stand him, and this is just horrible. And no, there were resentments for years. When it came down to it, the next time I went to go see him and he was physically dying, I held his hand and I said, your family forgives you. And I said, you guys need to tell him that. Because I knew that's what he needed. I just
Yeah.
like intuitively knew that that's what this man needed to hear. And guess what? Every family member went over to him, held his hand, and cried and said, "We forgive you,"
Wow.
because it changed things. So as much anger as they had towards him, he was going to be gone forever. So they still obviously loved him, but they
Yeah.
were just angry. And it's like, here's your opportunity to let go of your resentment, let your dad go to heaven peacefully,
Yeah.
and to just you be peaceful. You are the ones who are left here on earth. He's going to heaven. He'll be fine, but you need to be at peace.
Do you think any of them actually did in that moment forgive him because of that moment?
I do. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it. I felt it. I saw them hold his hand and say, and I told them, like, you got to tell him this.
Like, you know that you need to forgive your loved one,
Mm-hmm.
but you're just holding on to the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then here's Christy, like, you're going to tell him that you forgive him. And so you're like, okay, well, I might as well forgive him now.
But it changed.
Christy's making me.
It changed their emotions. It changed them from being angry
Yeah.
to sad. But it was for them. They needed to forgive him for themselves. And that's what forgiveness is about. And that is the one thing with hospice when people are dying. It's so important. And in my readings, I get it. There's like things that were left unsaid that need to be talked about. It's that closure.
Did I bring you here for this, really? Because this is something that's been on my mind. Like, we go through life not saying what we mean
Exactly.
to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about even just, I personally always feel kind of deceived.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate. And I'm maybe becoming a little jaded. I just tend to not really trust people at first when I
Mhm.
used to be just inherently very trusting.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't say what they mean.
Right.
And it's just ultimately frustrating to me because how many times I really was literally thinking about the fallout of this. Like, how many decisions have been made incorrectly because you thought someone felt or thought one way when actually they felt or thought something entirely different, but they weren't direct with you, or vice versa. There's just so much stuff. And I was thinking about the way the world is right now with a lot of just combativeness and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's angry at everyone and everyone's overgeneralizing everyone. And there's so much more
Mm-hmm.
to us than one thing.
Mhm.
If I boil you down to one thing,
Mm-hmm.
I have left out so much of what you are.
Right.
It's just really unfortunate. It makes me so sad that we can't just say what we mean.
Mm-hmm.
And it would make the world so much better. I think.
Well, when the person's alive, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like when my mother was dying and I knew she was going to go, I'd never see her again on this physical plane. I had to tell her everything. I held her hand for the first time. I'd never held my mother's hand.
Oh.
But when she was dying,
Mm-hmm.
I held her hand. So why didn't I hold her hand my entire life?
Did you want to?
I waited. No, I waited until the end, right? So, I mean, it was just like the regrets of things like that. Like, why didn't we have this great conversation? Why didn't we hug each other? Like, there wasn't a lot of affection, but there was in the end. And I was like, man, this would just have been, if I could just have you come back one more time to give you a hug or whatever. But I know she's there because she's been around. Like, I know she's fine. But those are the things, like, say the things that you need to say. Because these people, like, recently I did a reading and this young woman, her friend came through. She died in a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were doing this reading, I'm like, she's telling me that you were supposed to be with her because she's letting me know this. I'm like, it's not your fault. You've blamed yourself for years. It's not your fault. And she's telling me to tell you this. And she blamed herself for years. So those are the things I'm talking about. That's why it
Yeah.
makes these readings so amazing and helpful to people because they do get that closure.
Wow.
Because that's
Yeah.
closure. Like, and knowing that the spirits are communicating that's what makes it such an amazing experience for everybody. And just, I look at life differently. You know, you're talking about that. You're talking about like life is short. And I just learned to appreciate every day because we don't know.
Yeah.
And the spirits don't lie. I've realize that.
The good ones.
The good ones don't lie. The mean ones, no. They don't lie. Spirits are not going to lie to you when you're having a reading. They just won't.
Wow. That's so cool.
You got to trust the spirit, not the sitter always, because sometimes the sitter doesn't know.
So you're like, your grandmother is saying blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
No, she's not.
I'm like, I don't know about that. And you're
Yeah.
like, no, for real.
Yeah, for real.
You don't know.
She really is.
She really is. Well, thanks. I think we're good.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Cool. Let's stop.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Rebecca's Renaissance, the podcast. I hope that you enjoyed listening to our full conversation. Christy and I had a lot of fun, as you can probably tell. If you are interested in reading some of my blog or checking out any of my other podcast episodes, you can find me at rebeccasren.wordpress.com. That's REBECCASREN.wordpress.com. You can also find me on Spotify, Google Casts, and a few other podcasting networks, as well as my YouTube channel. Feel free to like and subscribe. I also welcome comments and contacts for episode ideas. Once again, thank you for listening. Be well.